Hey everybody, John here. Just got finished watching the LEC slate, the championship slate, and doing all my upkeep on that to see how that all went. Didn't get to take it down, unfortunately. I was really hoping to get that title, bring it back to the esports department, but congratulations to Petty Theft who took it down, and I know we had some guys in the top 10, so I'm really excited about that. But going on to the LEC slate for tomorrow, before we even start talking about the games, let's talk about kind of like a general rule that we're going to use, and that is I am fading the first day's results. So, not that I have to fade any team that won on the first day, but I treat the second day of the weekend as if the first day of the weekend had never happened, and I think that's really like a big deal. If I thought that SK was this level of team going into the weekend, generally speaking, one win shouldn't change that, and so I'm going to continue viewing them that way, continuing through the weekend. People do tend, especially earlier in the season, to get a little bit too like wishy-washy and flip-floppy about who they think is going to be good. Um, I like to stick with what I was like, what my thoughts were coming into the season, regardless of what happened day one. So with that in mind, Schalke and SK, two teams that did very oppositely on day one. Schalke lost a game to Vitality, where they were a pretty sizable favorite. SK was the big underdog winner of the day, beating Origin. So these are two teams on opposite trajectories. I probably won't find myself on much SK tomorrow. I thought they were the worst team in the league coming into the day. I still think there's an argument that they're the worst team in the league. Schalke, I thought, was going to figure some things out and be all right this split. I'm still going to think that that's the case. And given that SK is now likely to have the highest ownership of the underdogs, maybe, probably staying away from SK for me. I don't think there will be much leverage there, and I do think they're a rightful underdog. Going into game two, Rogue and Misfits. Another two teams that kind of looked a little bit different to me on day one. They got the win. Rogue got the win, but I didn't think they looked super impressive doing it. Misfits getting a big lead against Fnatic and then kind of throwing it at the end. I'm going to give Misfits credit for that because Fnatic's a very good team and very capable of those kinds of comebacks. Most of the teams in this league would not have been able to come back from the lead that Misfits got. So for me, Misfits is going to be a pretty considerable favorite over Rogue in this matchup. Unless there's a pricing disparity that helps me out, then I'm probably going to end up finding myself on some Misfits as a small favorite here. Their prices should lend them to us. We'll talk about pricing in a minute, of course. XL against Mad Lions. This looks reasonably fair. I do think probably XL is a bit better than plus 185 against Mad. Mad is a pretty variant team that can go both ways, and I think this XL lineup has a lot of upside, so XL feels like an underdog that I'm going to want to be involved with. They were last season a team that was very bloody, in which case Mad might be a great upside play on the favorite side, but we'll check all that out in just a minute. Fnatic and Vitality. This is the first just straight set of odds that are just completely reasonable that we've seen so far, I think. Like, Fnatic just should be a huge favorite over Vitality. Even if Vitality manages to get a lead against Fnatic, you still have to think Fnatic's the kind of team, I mean, we just saw it today against Misfits, they're the kind of team that even if they give up a lead to a lesser team, they're usually going to be able to make a comeback. That said, probably almost nil ownership on Vitality, so there could be some real leverage with playing Vitality as far as ownership goes. Last matchup of the day, G2 and Origin. I'll tell you one thing, which is no matter what the slate is all year, you're always going to have, like, I'm always going to have pretty heavy investment on G2 and pretty heavy investment on whoever G2 is playing against. Like, that's just the rules. When G2 lose, they lose badly. When they win, they tend to win very well. It's really hard to avoid their games on the LEC. It's actually kind of ruined LEC slates to some degree in the last, 2 years. It's really hard to stay away from their games. So I definitely will have some Origin tomorrow. It would be so G2 and Origin-like for G2 to come out and beat Mad Lions and Origin to come out and lose to SK, and then for Origin to beat G2 the next day. That would be so very much like them. That said, Origin has not beaten G2 to the best of my memory. I'm not sure they've ever beaten them in 10 or 12 tries. Maybe once, maybe twice. But it's not been often. G2 has definitely had their way with Origin in the amount of times that they've played each other. So I will have heavy involvement in that game. XL feels like a very live dog. If Misfits was the dog when the slate was made, which is one of the things I wanted to look at, is Misfits and Rogue's pricing. Misfit 80 carries 7,200, Rogue 68. So they made Misfits a slight favorite. That's probably about where they belong. I think a lot of my underdog ownership is going to go towards XL and Origin. Maybe just a tad of Vitality, just because I think their ownership should be just nil. I probably won't find myself on a lot of Rogue, and I probably won't find myself on a lot of SK. So that kind of stuff's a little bit up to you. But let's have a look, see if I'm a little bit wrong, because I'm definitely open to changing my mind about that kind of stuff. Let's take the favorites out of the pool to begin with. Actually, let's take the underdogs out of the pool to begin with. So that should be, I'm assuming they made Schalke the favorite. 7,000, yeah, with SK at 4,800. So yeah, we'll take the underdogs out of the pool. And that'd be Rogue, XL, Vitality, and Origin. So let's have a look at the favorites. General projections, if we go by projection, G2, Misfits, Mad, SK, or Schalke, and Fnatic. So Fnatic coming in at the bottom, Schalke coming in at the bottom. G2, Mad, Schalke, Fnatic projecting towards the bottom again in their matchup against Vitality. G2, Schalke moving up a little bit. Fnatic again projecting towards the bottom. They've been at the bottom every single position so far pretty much. Reckless moves up just one spot, but still not super high. G2 obviously at the top of everything, and you see Mad Lions grading out second or third in pretty much every position. Given pricing, so let's have a look at pricing. More like for the positions. Okay, so G2 is also the most expensive, so it makes sense that they're number one in every metric. Fnatic's pricing looks like second most expensive there, third most here, third here, second at 80 carry. So Fnatic feels like a no play to me. That makes some sense to me. Fnatic games do sometimes draw out, but they're kind of a low kill participation team in general. If they think the matchup's not going to be that bloody, which makes some sense, then they're probably going to be over-owned at minus 450. They're projecting to be one of the lowest scorers on the slate. So let's go back through it again here. So Schalke, Mad, Misfits, Mad, Schalke, Misfits, Misfits at the bottom again, Misfits again, Misfits again. So as far as the favorites are going, now Misfits is projecting as the lowest scoring team of the three. They are the lowest priced, so that makes some sense. Mad and Schalke seems like they're kind of rated correctly as well. Otawamne, I don't know what's going on with Otawamne. He was way too expensive yesterday, and he's way too expensive again tomorrow. I don't know exactly what's happening with him. Like, look at that. He's 7,000. His 80 carries 7,600. Like, that's just crazy. It's not like his projection is, like, super insane. He's still, like, 6 points below Wonder. In any case, I think that it makes the most sense that Mad and G2 are probably your two big favorites that you want to play, and then probably you mix in either Misfits or Schalke. Let's have a look and see. Can you just fit, like, what does like an 80 carry captain stack of Misfits look like, given their pricing? Just going to throw 4 of them in there and kind of see what it leaves us with and see if that's like something that's doable. So a 4 Misfits stack, assuming the other team had a kind of cheap support. Yeah, I mean, you can get 4 Misfits stacks with other favorites with 80 carry captains. So Misfits makes a lot of sense. It seems to me like the strategy for tomorrow is to either play G2 or Mad Lions with an underdog to try to get the maximum ceiling that you can, or to play a couple of these lower priced favorites together, like a Schalke and a Misfits or something like that. Sorry guys, I'm gonna give it just a second here. Very sorry about that. So it seems like the strategy is to play the big favorites with the underdogs, or to play the lower priced favorites together. That makes the most sense to me. Moving on to the underdogs, let's have a look with them real quick. Got them there. Okay. So general pricing, we're looking at projections. OG should be projecting best at pretty much every position. They don't at mid, and I'm going to tell you, this is This is not a one-time thing. I'm going to start pulling up our sheet more often when I need to. I wonder if... Do I have it? Let me see if I can just pull it over real quick. I want to show you guys... these sheets, because I haven't used these enough in the breakdown so far, and they're really important. And the problem is they are baked into the projections. But if you guys want to know why the projections are the way they are, this is a good example of one of the things that's going to go into that. So this shows you, like, in wins, where they rank in the league as far as scoring at their position. And you can see, if you find OG, they're 9th at mid. Like, they just don't score at that position at all. And that's just a constant of them. Like, Nuke Duck is just not a good scorer, and no matter what kind of position he's in, that is just something that's always happened with him. Origin in general aren't good scorers, but Nuke Duck in particular is a very bad scorer. But these are the kinds of things, if you're wondering, like, what's going into the things that the projections that you're looking at, all these different tables are, like, all being taken into account when going through your projections. So believe me when I say the projections are very, very good. And it just happens to be really obvious right here, because you can see Origin showing up towards the top of basically every list, except for mid, where Nuke Duck is down in the middle there. So he's kind of an easy person to get rid of if you're considering playing Origin. In general, this is one of the very few slates where you can play Origin. Origin are usually completely unplayable because they score so low, but if they beat G2, they're going to score. So this is one of the few slates where you can play some Origin. Let's see how everybody else is looking. Rogue sitting at the bottom. Rogue again. Rogue comes up to the top and mid, also a consistent. Larson, a very, very good scorer. Back to the bottom for the last two positions. So Rogue seems like a team that doesn't have a ton of upside. You can't do quite the same thing I was doing with the favorites, where you can kind of eliminate low-scoring teams, because if there's only one underdog winner on the day, you probably wanted them in your lineup, even if they weren't super high-scoring. But you can still get a kind of general feel for which ones might have the best scoring potential. You can see SK showing up towards the bottom a lot too. So SK and Rogue, some teams that their scoring does not project to do very well, and SK is a team that I was already thinking about fading for ownership purposes. So makes a lot of sense, I think, to get rid of them. XL makes a lot of sense to me. OG makes a lot of sense to me. Vitality has an extremely high expectation in a lot of positions because of Fnatic. Fnatic's the same as G2. When they lose, they tend to give up a lot of points. If I was going to estimate the ownerships on this slate, let me give it a shot real quick. I'm going to guess that you'll see G2 as the highest owned team. Fnatic as the second highest owned team. Mad Lions. Misfits. I bet Shulka's not very owned. Probably Rogue. Actually, I bet SK. And then Rogue. Then XL. Then Shulka. Then OG. Okay, I think this would be my estimates for ownership. I would guess that G2's at the top and then moving down this way in their ownership levels. I could see Mad and Misfits maybe being switched because Mad doesn't fit very well with the other teams that people are going to want to play, so I could see them being switched. I could see Rogue and SK being switched. But those are pretty much, like, this 4 is the ones that I'm not that confident about. I'd be really surprised if it wasn't G2 followed by Fnatic, and if the bottom 4 didn't look something like this. So just reasonable expectations for ownership, and I think you're going to see really low numbers on Vitality and probably pretty low numbers on Origin as well. Looking for a cash game lineup, kind of the last thing I'll do today. So G2 is going to be in your cash game lineup every single time. Let's see. We want another big favorite with them. Usually Fnatic makes a lot of sense. Mad Lions makes some sense on this slate, although I think their opponent is maybe a little bit tougher than that. Is there anybody else that feels safe? It's really just Fnatic. Yeah, it really just feels like Fnatic. So let's have a look at what happens if we try to fit... Let me get the favorites back out here instead of the underdogs. Can we fit a Mickey X captain? Hillisang is usually very cheap, which helps. And then at 80 carry, actually let's filter out the other teams and just deal with Fnatic and G2. For the record, this is an insanely common cash game strategy, and it's one of the ways that you can make the most money playing LEC until people start catching on to it. Last split, I think I played Fnatic and G2 as my cash lineup in like literally 80 or 90% of slates, and that was no problem at all. Like they usually almost always win, they score well, there's no reason not to try to play them. Sorry, Fantasy Labs is doing an update right there, so they started adding in players from another slate, and they're going to move them over in a minute, but they're crowding me. It is the higher prices that are correct, so these ones. Okay, so we've got Mickey and Hillisang. I'll see if there's money left over, and then we can try to upgrade the captain, but I'm starting with this because this is usually where you end up. 200 difference at 80 carry, an 800 difference at mid, 800 difference at jungle, 400 difference at top lane. So you save the most money if you play Self-Made and Nemesis with Wonder and Perks. That leaves you 4,900 for team, which is not going to get you either one of these teams. What if you switch Hillisang and Mickey? $5,300. Still not going to do it. You'd have to take at least one more Fnatic player out of the lineup. You'd probably have to play 4 Fnatic. If we switch over to Whippo, that gives us 5,700, and we could play G2 team. That would be a thing. You get Perks and Mickey. Looking at only a 204. The team's not in there at the moment. Yeah, there we go. A 203.9. Decent sized cash game lineup. What is it optimized to? Let's see. Yeah, the 203.9. Let's see if there's anything else that projects better. Let's take Fnatic out. We'll put in another favorite that we kind of like. Like, I think Mad Lions is pretty good. Doesn't even find a lineup there between those two teams. Look over at... I think that's probably your best options, really. I do think Misfits is going to beat Rogue, so you can get a 232 expectation lineup playing 4 G2 with Misfits. Mickey, Wonder, Yankos, Perks, and then Fabivin and Doss. That is still a little bit riskier, though. And if you wanted to go risky as playing Schalke, you could get a 220 expectation lineup with 3 G2 and Nukes a lot captain. That's the best you can do, apparently. If you go... That's all the different favorites we can try to pair with. Mad Lions doesn't work. G2 has to be in your cash lineup, for the record. They just have to be. You absolutely are trying to get G2 in your cash lineup every single time. So it feels to me like your best choices are either to go with Misfits, and it's going to give you some more ceiling, or you can go with Fnatic, and you're going to gain some floor, since Fnatic wins a lot more often. As far as FanDuel, I just want to keep mentioning FanDuel just a little bit since you have to play the 3 teams over there. I'm guessing for cash, something like G2 Fnatic with Misfits team, or G2 Misfits with Fnatic team. Some combination of those 3 makes the most sense to me. You could use Mad Lions instead, but I really think Mad Lions is going to have a higher lose percentage against bad teams this season than like a Misfits or a Fnatic. Getting Schalke in as your 3rd team wouldn't hurt. Just playing a 3rd team at the team slot in general is not a bad idea. Pick your 2 bloody stacks, one of which is G2, somebody else, and then put a 3rd team as your team slot. That makes a lot of sense in these kinds of slates. So just a little brief mention for FanDuel there. Any other additional FanDuel questions, just hit me up on Twitter or in the Discord or something like that, and we'll try to talk a little bit more about that. I don't talk about it as much because there's not as many people playing there. And I don't know it very well because I don't really play on FanDuel. I might try to get somebody in at some point that knows a little bit more about it and try to go a little bit more in depth. But in any case, I think that's a pretty reasonable breakdown of what we're looking at tomorrow. Good slate, interesting, a chance to kind of fade what happened on day 1 and try to win some money back on day 2. I like it, man. Let's go out there and get some money. Good luck, everybody. Hit me up if you have any questions.